If you want to be notified when Breakfast Club videos go up, remember to subscribe and click the bell.
You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
Hey guys, Nathan Brandon Masters, Breakfast Club Wednesdays. Sorry I couldn't be here last week. I was prepping for a shoot that we were actually doing later on that day, and Wednesday was the day my actress and I would be both available, so we shot on that day. But thank you to Charming Man for taking over for me. So let's get into the topic for this week, which was brought by Serious Mind, and that was bridging the gap between the generations, the baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y, or as we call them, the millennials. And I can't help but to acknowledge that a lot of the things that Generation Y are doing are, things that are very similar to what the baby boomers did in their youth. You had a lot of people who were, in the 60s, 70s. You had a lot of protesting. You had a lot of rioting. As a matter of fact, this time period mirrors that time period, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of the protesting, rioting, things like that were over the many of the same things. And so I also have to point out the way that it seems to me that baby boomers and millennials see the world, where they see the world as kind of like a boogeyman around every corner, and there's kind of like this constant fear and worry, this constant, and even though a lot of the baby boomers have actually become very conservative, if not socially, at least when it comes to finances and things like that, I think that as you grow up and you gain responsibilities and you learn how the world works, you just are kind of forced to change, because you have to acknowledge that things don't work the way you want them to work or the way you even think they work. Things work in a very specific and realistic manner, and there's nothing new under the sun. I really believe that. There's nothing new under the sun, and you're going to have to be faced with those realities. I'm not particularly sure that there's anything that needs to be, that there's any gaps that need to be bridged. And I think people change based on what they decide to do in life. If you decide at some point that you're going to open up your own business, you're going to find out that you're going to become more conservative as you try to make profit off that business. If you're somebody that's working, if you're working an office job, you're probably going to be a little bit more conservative. If you're working at a fast food restaurant, you're probably going to be more liberal. And I think the reason for that would be it's pretty obvious. If you're making more money, you're probably a little bit more comfortable, and you don't want that comfort taken away from you. Plus, you're probably a little bit more likely, if you're smart, to plan for a rainy day. To, if that comfort is taken away from you, to cushion that blow a little bit. And I think as you grow older and you get different responsibilities, your priorities change. So if you decide that you're going to have a family, you probably are going to become more conservative, because you're going to look at the things that you probably thought were cool and fun and awesome, and you're going to say, no, I don't want my kid doing that. I don't want my child endangering themselves. One of the things about the baby boomers that have uniquely affected people is that baby boomers, from what I can tell, especially in dealing with my parents, especially, baby boomers tend to be way highly overprotective of their children, and I think Generation X parents are also very overprotective. They're probably more overprotective than than the baby boomers. Where I think Generation X parents, they tend to be more of, well, that's my child, and you don't do anything to my child. You don't touch my child. You don't look at my child wrong. You don't do anything. And then we get to this generation. A lot of them are the children of Generation X, and they are growing up in a total. They need the nanny state. They almost need the nanny state, because if something goes wrong with a lot of them, just they don't know what to do. They cry to some authority figure to fix it. The moment something goes wrong, fix this. And we saw this when Trump was elected. You had millennials. One of the famous ones, that one girl that was saying, "Fix this." Who are you screaming to? That authority figure will not swoop in and fix things. You will have to live with that thing that you don't like. There's this idea that if that there's something wrong with you if you're doing something for yourself. If you're trying to figure it out yourself, there's definitely something wrong with you, because there's an authority figure to do this for you. Those are all just generalities. Okay, I know that everyone doesn't fall into that. I think generations, a lot of us start off very, very liberal in our youth. We have a thought process of saving the world, and that the previous generation messed it up really, really bad, and it's all their fault. But a lot of times, it's not the previous generation's fault. The previous generation were just doing the best they could at the time, and then later on we came and they did the best they could with us based on what they knew at the time, and now it's up to us to do the best we can do, and then the next generation will do the best they can do. And I think, again, one of the biggest issues we have is that all of these generations, a lot of them are so stubborn as far as their belief systems, their ideologies. Nothing moves a lot of these people. And that's one of the big things, that when it comes to things like politics or ideologies, people don't budge. I don't know if there's ever going to really be a real bridge between these divides. It's just how people are, and you change based on things that you do or that you discover, or how you decide to live in the future, and the things that you I guess come in contact with. The peoples, the ideas that you allow yourself to come in contact with may change you the older you get. And I also think if you're open to really seeing how the real world works, your ideologies will definitely change, because what you'll see is that a lot of the idealism that you were taught, it, but nobody else is playing by those rules. So that's where it gets really kind of depressing in a certain way, because you find that everybody's kind of playing by their own rules, and a few people are, I won't even say a few, a lot of people are trying to do what they think is right, and you find out that that's not the way the world is. The world overall, particularly when we start talking about corporate America and corporations in general, things like people like that, and businesses and things like that, a lot of people are not trying to think about doing what's right. They're trying to think about doing what makes money, doing what will give them power, things like that. So I hope that made sense. You take it easy. Nathyn Brandon Masters. Hasta.